The Dogs of Dow strategy was popularized by Michael B. O'Higgins in his investment book, Beating the Dow. His theory was extremely simple. He basically suggested that the way to beat the Dow Jones was to simply purchase the 10 highest yielding stocks on a 30 stock DJIA at the beginning of each year. So, to perform the strategy, you would simply check on the last day of the year, so December 31st, and amongst the 30 stocks, you would purchase the 10 that have the highest dividend yield. And then you would wait until the next year to do it all over again. This theory basically revolves around the idea that most large companies go through their ups and down periods, but rarely will they ever go completely broke. So, that being said, you can invest correctly by following the Dogs of Dow strategy to purchase the stocks of the larger companies during their struggling periods, hopefully anticipating that their future success will be within that following year. So this strategy has been used and altered for many people, but there are also some variations of the Dogs of Dow, such as the Small Dogs of Dow, the Dow 5, the Dow 4, and the Foolish 4. And like many have done while testing these variations of the Dogs of Dow strategy, um, I will need to, in my experiment, to form some sort of back test for this strategy. So I've decided for this experiment that I conducted, I will span over 5 years, and since this year isn't over, I will not be including it in my experiment, which I didn't. Um, so after collecting data, it helps get a better sense of statistically if the Dogs Dow has been outperforming the Dow Jones. And what was really interesting is that I also noticed that the small Dogs of Dow has actually outperformed both the DJIA and Dogs of Dow almost every year but 2016. And although I didn't do the full statistical research on the small Dogs of Dow, it is just another interesting thing to point out. But we can also see that every year, almost every stock within the dogs has had positive returns besides a few years besides 2013, which was the best year for both Dogs of Dow and small dogs within this data set. Dividends for almost all of the stocks referenced in the figures pretty much stayed consistent, meaning when the stock price falls, yield increases, creating the list of stocks known as the Dogs of Dow. And that being said, it is a good sign to see that the price of the stocks, once they became dogs, is increasing. Taking into account that all of the statistics in my figures are reinvesting the dividends being paid. And this can help shareholders greatly increase returns as seen. Statistics look fairly nice over the past 5 years. It is still not completely significant of data to completely prove that the strategy can beat the market. The Dogs of Dow has not beaten the Dow Jones every single year, and when it hasn't always beaten it by very much. So the Dogs of Dow is slightly unpredictable in each year, and it hasn't completely shown that it brings significant returns on a yearly basis. So one of the major reasons that the strategy is popularized is not because of the returns, but because of the simplicity of the strategy. And many investors follow this strategy due to the ease and lack of research you really need to partake in this and to use it as an investment strategy. So just to recap, the statistics are good enough and have shown returns over the past 5 years at least, so within my data that I researched. But there's really no reason to truly invest in the Dogs of Dow based off of this research because there is some risk and there is no really true reassurance that investors will gain from this strategy.